Welcome to the Switchblade Sisters Social Club. Yet another true crime podcast where two middle-aged friends exploit their worst fears for your entertainment. You're welcome.
For more information, find us on Instagram and Facebook or check out our website at www.switchbladesisterssocialclub.com. Audience discretion advised.
Hi, this is Dee, and I'm here with Emma. Hi, Emma.
Hello.
And we are Switchblade Sisters Social Club, where two friends exploit their worst fears for your entertainment. I'm back to grim again.
Uh-oh.
Grim and not old-timey this time.
Oh.
Mm-hmm.
Is it in this country, though?
No.
Okay, that's good.
Okay.
Thank God.
One little bit of respite. And also, in a weird role reversal, I'm on the Prosecco and you're on the...
Water.
Yeah. Are you okay?
I know, but in my... No. In my defense, I do have a really busy work day tomorrow, so
You do.
don't need a headache.
You've got to be a mega boss
Bitch.
lady tomorrow, huh?
Yeah.
Angel of death duty, don't you?
Yeah, although it isn't Angel of Death, it's more mediation, so
Oh, right. Angel of peace.
hopefully
Hopefully.
they don't start rowing over the table or something.
Oh my God. Has that ever happened? Have you ever been involved where it's been gotten... Nah.
Not in mediation. In HR, I've had a chair thrown at me before. Yeah.
What?
I made somebody redundant and they got up and threw their chair at me.
Oh, so you couldn't even fire them for it?
No.
That's awful.
I know.
I don't
People
like anyone
suck.
throwing chairs at you.
It's all right. It didn't hit me.
Oh, that's all right then.
Small mercies.
Yeah. Well, do you want to hear what's going to happen today? I got most of my information from different podcasts because we love a good true crime podcast. So I listened to
Absolutely.
Mask of Sanity podcast, Park Predators. Park Predators is one of my favorites at the moment. Cold Case Files, Criminally Listed, and This is Monsters, as well as a documentary, an episode of In Plain Sight, Terrified to Death, which is on Amazon Prime. So I'm going to take you back. The year is 1993. Little Dee is 10 years old.
I would have been 14.
And wearing matching tracksuit bottoms and tops that my mum made for me.
Well, it wasn't the Adidas ones.
No, she used to make them. Yes,
Weren't they like, yes. Yeah.
They were a thing.
Good 90s.
Can we just say about how you came with me to my mum's and dad's house this weekend, and my dad tried on his different hats for you so you could tell him which one you liked best.
I love your parents so much.
They're so cute. My mum made you tapioca pancakes.
She did, and they were delicious.
They are delicious. If you are Brazilian, you know what we're talking about. Right, so I'm going to tell you the story of Robert Spangler. So Easter Sunday, 1993, they went to the Grand Canyon, where we have both been. Well, actually, I just flew over it on the plane and saw it, but you actually went, didn't you?
I did, and it is amazing. Recommend it to everybody. Absolutely incredible.
I don't think I'll ever be able to go without thinking of this case now, so...
Oh, don't ruin it. You're going to ruin the Grand Canyon for me, aren't you?
Yeah, but you've been already, so it's okay. So
Okay.
Donna
I
and
go
Robert...
again.
Well, yeah, you've got to take me, apparently. Donna and Robert Spangler were posing for a selfie, and he turned around to set up the camera, and when he turns back again to Donna, she's gone. When he looks...
Oh my God, I know this story. I know this story. I
Do you?
I think the guy told us about it when we were there.
Oh my God, that's batshit. Were you at the place where it happened?
Yeah.
The exact spot? Because I know the Grand Canyon's like miles long, obviously. It's grand.
I think it was, yeah, I think if it's the side, yeah, it must have been because they have barriers there, but in the like part where like is the Indian Reserve, they don't have to have like health and safety stuff, so they don't have any barriers up or anything. And there was that case they told us about, and then there was another one where someone drove into a bunch of like they drove their car and took a bunch of people out at the
Oh,
Grand Canyon.
okay. Well, it's not the car one, but it might be the
No,
one. Yeah.
yeah.
So he looks over the edge and he sees her kind of on a ledge below, and he goes down. He manages to reach her body, and he sees that she's dead. So he goes for help. The rangers asked why she was so close to the edge, but he said that they just wanted a very, very good photo. He
Mhm.
does admit, though, that she'd been feeling dizzy that day. The Rangers were already a bit suspicious because after checking on Donna, he ran to the ranger station. They must have like stations semi-regularly, whatever. And then he waited in line to report the accident. So he gets to the front of the line. I don't know how long he had to wait, but he waits in line, gets to the front and says, excuse me, my wife just fell to her death.
Oh my God.
Like, surely you would queue jump at this point. He's not
Yeah, I
even
think you
British.
should. Yeah, should be shouting from the rooftops, like, "Oh my
Yeah.
God,
Like you'd
I'm
run through the
sorry."
doors like
Yeah,
help, help, right?
exactly.
Um, the Case File podcast was particularly interesting, and I'll put all the links in the show notes if you want to listen to some more podcasts on this case, although I will cover everything for you. Because it actually talked to the investigators and the park rangers at the time, which is always really interesting to hear, the first responders and people involved in the case. Um, and one of them was saying that at the time he was crying and he seemed sincere. So within a week, they closed the case saying it was an accident. Within a week. So that's quite quick for the legal system and the law
Yeah,
system to do anything, really, I think.
absolutely.
But hooray for friends, because later a friend of Donna calls the police and says that Robert Spangler's previous wife also died suspiciously. And this makes me think of like the staircase vibes, when they're like, hang on a
Hmm.
minute, okay, it's a freak
Hmm.
accident, but how many people have several freak accidents happen to their wives in a lifetime? So, um, and it's always a case of needing to look at who benefits financially, right? From
Oh,
someone's death.
absolutely.
Like, I would be suspicious of anyone that benefits financially from my desk. If any of them, any of my beneficiaries, asked me to go hiking anywhere dangerous, I'd be like, I know your game. So that's my sister. And I would definitely be suspicious if she ever asked me to go hiking anywhere, because I'd be like, are you okay, hun? So,
Yeah. No, she's
um,
not a hiker, is she?
no, bless her. She's a lot of things, a lot of amazing things, but a hiker, she is not.
No.
So let's learn a little bit more about Robert Bob Spangler. He was born in Iowa in on the 10th of January, 1933. He was put up for adoption as a baby, but he had a fairly normal upbringing. The couple who adopted him also adopted another son, Dwayne, and but it was noted quite early on that he had an extreme temper and got into fights at school. But this calmed down a bit when he found sports. So
Okay.
even that sounds quite normal for a young boy. Do you know what I mean?
Hmm.
They have a lot of emotions and hormones, and it sounds like, okay, he's found a healthy outlet, a healthy coping mechanism. At the time that Donna dies, he's a semi-retired public relations worker, and he'd met Donna Sunling in 1990, and they started dating and got married quite soon. So after just a few months of dating, things happen quicker when you get older. He's already like nearly 60, I guess. I don't know.
Right.
They live in Durango, southern Colorado. And at the time, Spangler was also working as a local radio host. So the impression I get is that he's quite an extrovert. Like he's
Hmm.
okay being in the public eye and, um, you know, being vocal and being center of attention and stuff like that. More than being okay, it kind of seems like he likes that. And that in itself, there's no judgment for that. Some people like that, and the rest of us benefit from that because they are a source of entertainment. Donna has 5 kids from a previous marriage and 5 grandkids as well. Spangler had been married before too, and like I mentioned, that one ended in disaster as well. So we're going to rewind now to when he was in high school. Like I said, he found sports. He was quite active in different clubs, sports clubs, as well as other things. He was also on the school newspaper, and he fell for the editor, Nancy Stolman. And then they both went on to attend Iowa State University, and he graduated with a degree in technical journalism in 1955. They got married that year, and then he joined the army. Nancy at the time didn't finish university. I think that she put being a wife ahead of that at that point in her life. Robert Spangler served 2 years in the army in New York and then was honorably discharged. And he did like, communications stuff in the army because he was a technical journalist. I don't know what technical journalism is, but anyways. He lived in New York after he was discharged for a little bit, working in different television companies and so forth. And here's a creepy fact.
Mm-mm.
Yeah, I didn't like this fact at all. He helped develop the show Sesame Street.
Oh,
I know. It's like, oh,
yeah, no, I don't like that.
yeah. I almost didn't even fucking put that fact in because I was like, I don't want to ruin Sesame Street for people. But anyways, Nancy and Robert Spangler have two kids, David in 1961 and Susan 2 years later. And then eventually they moved to Littleton, Colorado, which was 30 minutes south of Denver, Colorado. Spangler started working for a charity that improves drinking water globally, the American Waterworks Association, in their PR department. So again, talking and being persuasive is officially his profession now, you know?
Mm-hmm.
At some point, the marriage deteriorates, like they all fucking do. He's very outdoorsy. We talked about how he likes sports and so forth. He loves hiking and he kind of is restless and hates being at home. Kind of wonder if he had ADHD, undiagnosed ADHD, which can lead to a lot of restlessness and frustration.
Yeah, sounds like it.
That's not why he went on to do the things. I'm not saying there's a link between his horrible actions that follow up and ADHD, but it does sound like he has a lot of like this restless energy. And Nancy, they talk about how she's a stay-at-home mom and she's very like homebody. And it's like, is she, or did they just decide as a couple to have two kids and someone actually needs to parent the kids? So he's
Yeah.
like, I'm gonna go out on my bike or go hiking or whatever. And she's like, well, I guess I'm a homebody then because someone has to look after these children. So I'm always a little bit like skeptical of that. But one thing's for sure, they definitely didn't spend a lot of time together. He definitely wanted to go off and do all these things, which Nancy either didn't want to do or couldn't do. People actually describe him as egotistical, which is next level from being extroverted, isn't it?
Yeah.
And that he always felt like he had to feel like the most important person in the room. At one point, he starts an affair with Sharon Cooper, who works with him in the office, and he leaves Nancy for a while to live with Sharon. They've been having a relationship for 2 years, and when Nancy found out about the affair, Spangler moved in with Sharon for almost a year, during which time he hardly saw his kids. Red
Mm.
flag. We always say, don't we? If someone can abandon their kids, they can fucking abandon anyone, right? And the reason is almost worse than if he himself just couldn't be asked. It's because Sharon didn't like kids and didn't want to have him in the house.
Oh,
And it's like, to be fair, it's her house, but you can see your kids elsewhere. Like,
but also, I'm sorry, you don't get with somebody knowing
yeah,
that they have kids and then I mean, sorry, this is severe emotional trauma for me
yeah,
because it's
for
exactly
sure.
what my stepmom did. But
Well, I feel like it's her right to have that opinion, but him as a dad should be like, well, then we can't be together,
absolutely,
you know?
absolutely. And like, don't,
Yeah.
yeah, no, I'm not going to go on that rant.
And at the very least, see your kids elsewhere,
Yeah.
you know? At the very least, like, I mean, there's a million ways to handle this situation better than just not seeing your fucking kids.
Yeah. But men are so fucking weak.
And I not that this makes it much better, but this is 1970s. It's a little bit, it was a slightly different time in that people expected even less from fathers, right?
Yeah, true.
I mean, yeah, we've moved on from that, thankfully. Um, Sharon was known to be feisty and they would have fiery arguments, and she would even throw stuff at him in the office. A little segue from your chair throwing story there. Was it Sharon? No, it wasn't,
I
because
don't
she's,
remember their name, to be fair.
yeah, and also she's no longer with us because this story is grim.
Oh,
Yeah, at one point, um, he and Nancy actually get back together. So I don't know whether he's had enough of Sharon, or he wants the comfort of his wife, or he doesn't want to get a divorce because it's too expensive. But things are a bit different now. I feel like Nancy's had a little bit of a awakening, or she's a little bit like, I'm gonna fucking take care of me a bit more because, I owe that to myself and you're not looking after me. So she goes back to uni to finish her degree at a local college, and she's now actually job hunting. So that's great. Get some
yay.
empowerment. It makes it a lot harder for you to get shat on. And just after Christmas in 1978, Nancy writes a letter to her dad and her stepmom saying things are going really well with Bob, with her husband, and she's excited about her plans for the future, which, little foreshadowing, but this letter does not indicate any kind of suicidal tendencies or thoughts or whatever. It's not like definitive evidence because, the letter could be bullshit to reassure her
Yeah.
parents. You know what I mean? But it does seem like I haven't seen anything contradictory in terms of anyone who thinks that she was suicidal at this point.
Mhm.
Um, about 2 months after getting Nancy to allow him to move back home, 28th of December, so a couple of, well, probably roughly the same time as she's written this letter to her parents, Nancy and Bob get in a massive blowout. At this point, they've been together 23 years, apart from this little blip where he's gone to live with
Mhm.
Sharon. Susan, the daughter, at the time, she's 14 and she has her boyfriend Timothy and two of her friends over, and she's like mortified because they can hear this massive argument. And actually, they were the catalyst that Spangler used to provoke the fight. They had asked if they could have a New Year's Eve gathering, and Nancy had said yes. I imagine she wants her 14-year-old to be in her house on New Year's Eve rather than like out and about, right? And
Mhm.
Spangler accuses her of being too soft and launched into one. So, I mean, that as a 14-year-old girl with your boyfriend and your friends there, you would be fucking mortified, wouldn't you? If your parents were
100%.
having that argument about you as well. Ugh. 2 days later, on the 30th of December, 1978, Susan's boyfriend goes back to their house. He hasn't heard from her, and they had arranged to they had made plans for that day. He got concerned uh, when he got there, and he could see that Susan, David, and Nancy were all home. I expected he saw their cars or something. Susan was in theory expecting him because, like I said, they had made plans, but no one was answering the door. So he enters the home. He goes into her bedroom and he finds her dead in her bedroom. He obviously freaks out a bit, goes into her brother's room, and he sees that the brother is also dead. The brother was 17 at the time, Susan was 14. He calls the police. I don't know how, because it's the 70s, whether he uses the house phone or
Mm.
whatever, but the police arrive soon after. And they find 45-year-old Nancy dead in the basement. She's in front of a typewriter where she's apparently typed a suicide note, and it's signed at the bottom with just the letter N for Nancy. Ugh, this is so hard. Sorry, I should have said trigger warning. I'll put it in the show notes, but there is talk of suicide. The note reads, "What do I say now I decided to do this? I found the gun by accident some time ago and couldn't help but think about this. I don't know why I didn't say anything to you. I feel shattered. We have always argued about who would have the kids. I will. I know you will get along. You always have." So the first thought is that this looks like a double murder suicide, that Nancy's
Mm.
killed her kids and then killed herself. But right off the bat, the police are a little bit confused about some of the facts, and some of the things that they see at the crime scene. The gun that killed Nancy is on the floor, but it's more than 5 feet away from her body, so a couple of meters away, which is weird if she killed herself. And also, where the hell is Robert Spangler?
Yeah, good question.
Right? At 4:45 p.m., he comes home to absolute chaos. There's police everywhere, crime scene tape everywhere, neighbors trying to figure out what's going on. And he's in shock when he speaks to the police. He says he was kicked out in the morning because they were still having that argument. Anyone who's been married will totally understand how an argument can go on for 2 days.
Absolutely.
Um, and he had told her that he was leaving her. Robert Spangler says he just drove round, went to the movies, and he had no idea what happened to his family until he got home at 4:45 p.m. Here are some more of the weird things. They found gunshot residue on his right hand, and according to some sources, both hands. But apparently it was not enough to definitively say that he shot a weapon. But it was enough to say that he'd at least handled a weapon that had recently been fired. So how do you explain that? But also, he had the gunshot residue on the palm of his hands, but also on the back of his hands. And if you've handled a gun, it's normally on your palm. If you've shot a gun, it's normally on the back as well. If you think of like gunshot
The
splatter.
spray. Yeah.
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 But again, not very much. His excuse, which he gave like only about a month later, he says he went walking around the mall when he got kicked out. He came home from the mall. He saw a light on in the basement, who went down there and he saw his dead wife. He panicked, he picked up the gun and then dropped it on the floor, which is supposedly his explanation for why the gun was not, immediately like right next to her or in her hand.
So he's
And then,
covered like two birds with one stone there,
yeah.
basically.
And then he panicked some more and then drove around and went to the movies. Which, by the way, if you're wondering what film did he see, because they do think he actually went to the cinema.
Oh my
Um, he saw the animated Lord of the Rings movie. If you want something else ruined for you. I mean, it's not ruined for me because I would never see it.
I
But yeah,
mean, yeah, the reaction to the second wife dying makes me think, yes, that probably did happen, but wow.
right? So like you said, two birds, one stone. He's explained why he's got gunshot residue on his hands and why the gun is further away from the body than would be normal. But it still doesn't look good, does it? Like, why would you fucking lie about this for a month? Um, so also there was the fact that Nancy had some broken capillaries in her right hand, which is sometimes caused by the recoil of a weapon. But kind of sounds like it could also be caused by other things, you know?
Yeah,
And
100%.
apparently, the N written at the bottom of the letter matched the N on her bank check. So they confirmed, as much as handwriting experts can, that it was her that wrote that.
I mean, that was quite clever of him because if he'd actually written her name, he would have given more away, I guess.
Yeah. But Nancy had no gunshot residue on her hands, which is very weird. Because even if you can explain away why you might have some, why has she not got any on her hands? Because it's not like she had the opportunity to wash her hands after.
No,
And then on top of that, the typewriter had been totally wiped down for fingerprints. Why would you bother doing that if you were just typing your suicide note on it?
it's getting
So
weirder and weirder.
weirder and weirder. And also, how is that not enough evidence to like get him in, you know?
Yeah.
Spangler agrees to take a lie detector test, and we all
Oh,
know they're
good.
super problematic, but he gets himself so agitated, changing his breathing pattern constantly, that the results are inconclusive. And the same thing happens a couple of days later. So they also said they couldn't tell if he was doing it on purpose or not. So he is released without charges, which is
Just
it.
because of the lie detector test.
And
Like,
just
what?
apparently the fact that he had gunshot residue, the fact that he lied originally, the fact that there's like a few weird things, like the typewriter being wiped down for fingerprints, there wasn't enough to bring him in specifically, apparently. So, but it must have been one of those cases where the police fucking know. They just can't
Mm,
prove it. And I think that must be one of the hardest things as working as a police officer when you know someone's fucking killed people, his whole family, his teenage kids, and there's nothing you can do about it. So the police are suspicious, they just don't have enough evidence. 10 days later, Spangler's mum dies. Unrelated, but I just want to say that that happened. Um, so then Spangler flies under the radar for the next 14 years until Donna meets her tragic end at the Grand Canyon. Very soon after Donna dies, wait, actually, sorry, very soon after his wife and his kids die, he invites his former slash current mistress, Sharon Cooper, to come live with him in his family home. When I say very soon after, I mean like days,
Oh my God.
days after. Neighbors were creeped out by this too, because like even if you didn't suspect him for a minute of being involved in the murders, that's fucking bizarre, isn't it?
That's
Moving her
horrendous.
in, especially as he has a yard sale soon after, selling all of Nancy's and the kids' things.
I I I don't even know what to say. That's horrendous. That's so, I mean,
I actually think if he was my neighbor, I would be tempted to move,
100%. He's a
right?
fucking psychopath. I mean, never mind that he's killed his wife and his children, but then like, and that how disrespectful that is to move somebody in straight away and then sell all of her shit and her
And on
kids'
top,
shit.
like, not even, oh, it is disrespectful. I mean, it's nowhere near as disrespectful as actually killing them, but just like,
True.
it's just so gross,
It is
isn't
gross.
it?
Really gross.
So Sharon and Robert Spangler. So basically that relationship has clearly been going on for years, despite the fact that him and Nancy had supposedly rekindled their relationship, blah, blah,
I mean,
blah.
what did this guy have that two women took him back?
Do you want me to show a picture? Because you're going to be like, how does that guy? How are we begging people constantly to date us? And this guy has people fawning over him.
I mean,
You're,
Nancy should obviously never have taken him back, but obviously that Sharon has taken him back as
I
well.
mean,
Like,
Sharon and him seem to have like almost the worst relationship
mm,
because you know they're like fucking violent, you know.
oh my God.
Ugh, just awful. Yeah,
Yeah,
so I
he
mean,
reminds me of
it's this
he,
guy.
he reminds me of the shipman.
Yeah, 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 not wrong there. Yeah.
Oh,
So,
and I also remembered why they told us at the Grand Canyon about this guy
yeah, go
because
on.
somebody asked the question, has anybody ever fallen off and died?
Ah, okay. I'm
And
sure
that's
lots of
and
people have had accidents, but this,
no, so well, I mean, I went in 2010, and no, they said no one's ever fallen off and died other than like being
when they've
murdered.
been attacked, yeah.
Mm,
Sharon and Robert Spangler, when they're living together, they got three dogs.
no.
Yeah, no, I think the dogs are okay. I think they
Okay, good.
lived and died of natural causes. But Sharon had depression, and in hindsight, they suspect that she was probably bipolar or had some personality disorder or something. In July 1979, he marries Sharon, just 7 months after his whole family is killed. They
Mm.
go to the Grand Canyon for their honeymoon, and several times after that. In the mid 80s, Sharon even writes a book called On Foot in the Grand Canyon under the name Sharon Spangler, 'cause she's married at the time. And it was actually quite a popular book at the time. It was a book about different hikes you can do in the Grand Canyon, different precautions, whatever, which is really ironic when you think that her husband later on marries someone else who dies there. And you want
Yeah,
to know about this book? What do you want to know?
we
Because I
got
bought it.
it.
I just couldn't resist. So, on foot in the Grand Canyon, hiking the trails of the South Rim. Were you at the South Rim?
No, the West.
Oh, okay. Well, there's lots of not great black and white photos where you can't much see anything. Ugh, that's a man, and I wonder if that's actually Robert Spangler in that photo. And I haven't read the book because I have no interest in hiking the Grand Canyon, but And also, like, if I read a book, it'd probably be one with better maps than this. So I don't mean to like diss her, but the maps are not great. Um, and here are the
No, we
three.
need to we need to diss her. She's a fucking arsehole. Like all of the
No,
shit that she did.
she's an idiot, but
I
yeah.
sorry, she's an arsehole. Like stop
Uh,
like not letting him
well,
see his
yeah, and she
kids.
is in her, guilty of
And
domestic violence as well.
yeah, and
But
marrying someone 7 months after their entire family
yeah,
got killed. Arsehole.
these are the three dogs, and
Cute.
that's Sharon. Now I just want to read you this because it's interesting. It says, Sharon Spangler worked as an English teacher in public relations and journalism. She taught yoga. She obedience trained her three dogs. They were rescue dogs, I think. Yeah, Shadow, Sunshine, and Molly, all of whom she adopted from some charity. Sharon Spangler died in 1994. That's all the information they give about her death. I'm going to give you more, right? So she's published this book. Um, in 1986, Robert Spangler goes to visit his elderly father. His father's 92, so pretty elderly, and in 1986, which is, nearly 40 years ago. But his father was in great health at the time. But just a few days after Robert Spangler arrives, his father has a fall and dies as a result, 2 weeks after the fall. So it just seems like a bit of a coincidence, a little quinky dink that Spangler is there, you know,
Yeah.
when that happens. Like they don't
Yeah.
live together. Um, I don't know if Spangler was the sole inheritor, whether his brother Dwayne was still alive at the time or whatever. But the parents were very comfortable. So we are talking about a nice chunk of change, even if he had to split it with his brother. Meanwhile, his marriage to Sharon is turning nasty. It's like it already sounds like they didn't have
Mm.
the nicest relationship, you know? Um, and when you have someone who's an egotistical narcissist with someone who's also got a fiery temper, it's not going to be a calm,
No.
soothing relationship, is it? And then on top of that, Sharon's mental health was also deteriorating. Can't help going out with someone like Robert Spangler. They were having blazing rows, and quite often they turned physical. And one instance in 1987, she actually ran to the local grocery store to call the police on him, saying that he was threatening to kill her, but it didn't get taken much further. When the police arrived, she actually attacked them, like she was in a little bit of a, I don't know whether it was a psychotic break or whatever, but she was definitely like amped up and agitated. She was taken overnight to the hospital for observations. And she did tell the police that her husband was trying to get her, but it almost feels like it was kind of dismissed as well because she was clearly paranoid and depressed and
Mm.
stuff. I don't know whether she changed her story or the police didn't take her so seriously because she had mental health issues. We've seen it time and time again, right? So in 1988, so the following year, after 9 years of marriage, they divorced. Robert Spangler has to pay her, bear in mind this is in the 80s, $500 a month for 3 years, and then it goes down to $400 a month for 7 years after that, on top of $150,000 immediately. So that's quite a hefty chunk of change. And part
Yeah.
of the reason for that is because of the large inheritance that he received during his marriage to Sharon. He then moved to Durango and he starts putting Lonely Hearts ads in papers. And that's when he meets and very quickly marries Donna. She is much more meek and mild than Sharon, like much more of a passive person. They got married, like I said, in 1990. He's working as a radio host and she's working as a fitness trainer at the gym. He would regularly talk about how he was anti-domestic violence and talk about his experiences with it, presumably Sharon. You know, I can imagine him playing the victim. Oh, my ex-wife used to
Mm.
beat me up, blah, blah, blah. And to be fair, there were anecdotes of how she was violent towards him, but there were also anecdotes of him, doing the same back. So just clearly a very toxic relationship on both sides. He regularly told different people different stories about what happened to his first wife and kids. This is fucking bizarro. And I can only imagine it's because it was still pre-internet times. Like we didn't all in 1990 have computers all over the place and, in every home, and we weren't Googling things and whatever. He told some people she died of cancer. So I can kind of get it if he wants to have like a sanitized version that he tells people to not have to tell them my wife killed my kids and then killed herself. But then you would think he would have like the one story that he tells everyone. So I
Yeah.
think the most bizarre thing is that he's telling different people different stories. So like I said, he told some people that she died of cancer. I don't know what the kids were supposed to have died of. He told others she killed herself and that the daughter died of heroin overdose and that the son died in a car accident. Bizarre, isn't it? Why would you
So
want people
bizarre.
to think that your daughter died of a heroin overdose when she didn't?
That's horrendous.
Sometimes he told them that they all died in a car accident. Sometimes in the story he was in the car, sometimes he wasn't. And it's just really weird that, I don't think he lived in a particularly large town, that these people weren't comparing notes or he wasn't scared they would. Um, he- Robert Spangler wants Donna and to go with him to the Grand Canyon, which I already think is kind of weird because that's what his honeymoon location from his last marriage, but I guess if he loves the place. Some sources say that Donna loved hiking and she was like a fitness instructor, so fitness wasn't an issue, I presume. But others say that she doesn't enjoy hiking because she's terrified of heights and she has
Mm,
vertigo. But all the sources and the family and the friends seem to confirm that she had this fear of heights. And so it's confusing why she would get so close to the edge of the canyon once she's there. And it seems like, at the very least, quite selfish that he's trying to force her to go on this holiday and then force her close to the edge, to take pictures and
yeah.
whatever.
I
So
know
it's,
I know when we were there, so my ex absolutely was petrified of heights. He wouldn't go anywhere near the edge at all. And also like couldn't watch me go anywhere near the edge. Like he was that petrified.
but you wouldn't like force them to for a photo, then would you?
No. Although that I just remembered the other death that had happened there. They in the West Rim, they have a horseshoe glass,
Oh,
what thing that juts out.
like balcony thing, right?
Yeah, and it's like 4,000 feet, from the bottom. And someone forced their wife to go on it, and she died of a heart attack. Nice.
Yeah. I mean, that seems like a very extreme example of why you wouldn't do that.
Mm,
But also, just don't do that. Why would you want
no.
to make your loved one be that uncomfortable? Anyways, she agreed to go to the Grand Canyon, poor Donna. But she had to take medicine for her vertigo. And for those of you who don't know what vertigo is, it can be like really make you feel very dizzy, lightheaded, nauseous, and all sorts. And it can be triggered by all kinds of things like heights and stress and whatever. So all the things that Donna was probably experiencing at the
Mm,
time. When Spangler realized that she doesn't love the Grand Canyon as much as he loved the Grand Canyon, it feels like he started viewing her as a burden to him. Like, I
oh,
don't know I'm sure it's spectacular, but this guy is like obsessed with the Grand Canyon.
yeah.
After her death, so she falls to her death. After her death, Robert Spangler had her cremated before her mother even arrived into town, which feels like because you remember they closed the case a week after,
Right.
so he would have been free to do whatever with her body, and kind of seems like let's get rid of any evidence in case this case ever gets reopened, right? But he also seemed to love the attention of being this widower from this dramatic, tragic accident because he started doing loads of interviews, going on loads of talk shows, talking about how to be careful when hiking, which that's not the worst thing in the world. Like if you've had something horrendous happen to you and you want to like help other people not have to go through the thing with you, but it's when you know that he moved in his mistress like days after his last wife died that you just start questioning his actions, right?
Yeah.
He immediately announced her death on his radio show. Like Why are you still doing your radio shows so soon after your wife has died anyways?
Yeah.
Um, he had tried before her death to get her to sign over the whole house to his name, but she wouldn't agree to it. But she did agree to make a will stating that he would get her share of the house if she died. Remember, she had kids from a previous marriage, so I assume he wanted to make sure that they didn't inherit it. So basically, he wanted the house in his name even while she was alive. And she said, "No, I'll make it so you get it if I die. But while I'm alive, I still own half the house that I bought, you know?" So what does he do after his wife Donna dies? He starts dating immediately and even takes dates to the Grand Canyon, which is just fucking weird. Even if we thought this was like 100% an accident or whatever, if you went on a date with a guy and he took you to the place where his last wife died very recently, you'd be like, you're not over this. Maybe you need a bit of time to heal, right?
I'd be like, that's the biggest red flag I've ever seen. I'm out.
I didn't even know that was a red flag that existed. And yet,
There it is.
you guys keep on surprising us every day. So, surprise, surprise, very soon after his third wife now. He's
Hmm.
had three wives, two of them have died. Sharon he divorced, the middle wife. But very soon after Donna dies, he rekindles his relationship with Sharon.
Oh, for fuck's
I
sake.
know. I was going to say she had a lucky escape, but for some reason, even though he has now had two wives that have died under suspicious circumstances, and she knows that he's violent, she's back. Um, this is during the time of the alimony, by the way. And also, not only did she have depression at this point, but she'd also developed a bit of a drug and an alcohol problem. She had all her money tied up in real estate and she was having real money problems. Um, Spangler writes to her and says he's going to send her $5,000 in the middle of 1994 and another $5,000 in the middle of 1995, in addition to the alimony. In 1994, which is like less than a year after Donna dies, she rents a room from Spangler in the same house that he lived with Donna. So it's the second time she's moved into a house that he shared with his now dead wife. Um, and she has in mind that this is going to be a retreat for her to get her head sorted, her finances together, and to finish her second book. I don't know why she thought any of that was going to be possible with this guy who she had such a turbulent relationship with, but I don't know whether she felt like she had very many options. So as it happens, she actually gets back with him. Um, and in 1994, months after she started dating him, she writes him a note while he's out of the house. The note says, "You said you wanted one of your former wives' lives to turn out okay. Your nurturing love gave me so much, and this release is for me a turning out okay. This release is for me a turning out okay. Please, my dear friend, acknowledge that this is the only way I could turn out okay and be well. To join God and Shadow, the dog that had passed away recently, and Dad. Love, Sharon." She also puts a note on her door saying, "I've done it this time." She then downs a bunch of prescription pills and alcohol in an apparent attempt at suicide. When Spangler comes home, he says he didn't notice the note on the door for about an hour. He found her conscious, but in a really bad way. He takes her to the hospital and she tells the doctor she did it to herself. But then she's supposedly stabilized and, doing okay. But then she passes out and dies 12 hours later. She was 52 years old. And FYI, guess who was the only person in the room with her when she died after
Oh,
being
God.
stabilized? Yep, Robert Spangler. And guess what? He doesn't have to pay anymore. Yep, alimony payments. He also got $20,000 from Sharon's insurance policy. And again, 1994, that was a hell of a lot more money. So this is another death, which is at the very least a little bit weird / suspicious, but there's no solid evidence again. But now it's kind of getting too much for the police to ignore. And remember, they've had this phone call from Donna's friend to say that his ex also died of suspicious circumstances. So they launch a multi-agency investigation into Robert Spangler in 1999.
Finally.
Yeah, I mean, it is 6 years after Donna died, and the first wife and kids died in the 70s, but we're getting there. They re-interview friends and family of the victims. They look at the old autopsy reports and case files. Donna's was particularly grim. She had so many broken bones that the coroner said she had multiple injuries which could have caused her death. They couldn't even say which one of her major injuries was what actually killed her. Could have been so many of them.
Mm.
I know, it's awful. Re-looking at the crime scene photos of Nancy, they find that the gun must have been held 3 to 10 inches from her head, which is unlikely for a suicide. So it's not something that is pleasant to think about, but when someone tries to take their own life with a gun, they normally hold the gun directly to their head or
Yeah.
in their mouth. They don't risk it by holding it at a distance. So they changed the cause of death from suicide to homicide, which means they can now properly investigate it. The FBI got involved because Donna's death was in a national park, and
Hmm.
normally the FBI has jurisdiction in the national parks, which I find fascinating. I don't know why. They interviewed Spangler again, and he refused to take a lie detector test this time, saying that it was so stressful last time that he hyperventilated. And I wonder whether it's because he knows that they've come a long way. He's not confident that
Mm.
he can fool a 1990s lie detector test versus a 1970s one. He actually, round about this time, 1999, moves to Pennsylvania to be with a woman he met online.
Oh my
Um,
God.
yeah, but apparently she was taken aback by his intensity, in quotes, so it didn't work out. I mean, he didn't even tell her that he was moving to be close to her. He just sold his house and turned up at her house one day, and he insisted on moving in, but she told him to piss off. Can you
Good.
imagine if someone just turned
Lucky
up?
escape.
Yeah, from states away, sold their house
Jesus.
to move in with you. So Spangler then moves to Grand Canyon, Colorado to work as the vice president of Applecrest Irrigation Company. 'Cause remember, he has some experience working for like water provision services. He also coaches the youth soccer team and is in the local theater group.
Mm.
He's now under surveillance, though, especially when he goes to the Grand Canyon, which he still does often, and with his new girlfriend, Judy Hilty. And again, I have to wonder what he's told her about his exes, you know?
Mm.
He
Hmm.
met her at a singles breakfast. Sounds grim.
Yeah. Even for us.
Uh-huh. During the summer of 1999, some reports say 2000, so around about this time, he's due to be in a new play, because, you know, he's in the local theater group, but he starts forgetting his lines. That's when he learns that he has lung cancer, which is an inoperable tumor on his lung, and that it spread to his brain, and that there's no cure.
Oh
Now,
no.
yeah, I'm not going to cry about it. A family friend told the authorities that Spangler was dying. It must have been a friend that's been re-interviewed since they reopened the investigation. So what does Spangler do? He decides to try to marry Judy. There's some reports that say that it's happened, but I'm more inclined to believe that it didn't happen, thankfully, because the police were super concerned for her.
Mm.
So yeah, again, like how she didn't know about his two wives that died in very suspicious circumstances and one wife that died in pretty suspicious circumstances. The police used his illness as a leverage against him, but also to put pressure on them to get him as soon as possible because they wanted him to fucking face some justice, right?
Yep.
And also they've been involved at this point in this investigation for several years. So 2 weeks before the wedding to Judy, or 1 month after, depending on the source that you follow, they bring Spangler in. They decided that because they know now that he's a narcissist, he needs his ego flattered, et cetera, et cetera. They decided they've got to make him feel super important. So what they do is just amazing. And I think they did this with Larry Jean Bell as well, where they made it seem like he had a whole department just looking for him, you know?
Mm.
They had a sign on the door saying Spangler investigation, for example. They had like they tried to make it look like there was way more people working on the case than actually were. Um, and he seemed to revel in this. It flattered his enormous ego even more so. At this point, though, he's still denying all wrongdoing to the police. They tell him, like, you're a dead man anyways. Why don't you just die with a clear conscience? He supposedly gets a strange look at his face at this point and a creepy smile. I imagine it's creepy. And he decides at some point in the interrogation that he might as well tell the truth. He confesses that he made Nancy, his first wife, write the letter N at the bottom of a blank sheet of paper, and then he typed the suicide note on that paper afterwards. Then he brought her down to the basement and he made her close her eyes and said that he had one last Christmas surprise for her. Because remember, this
Oh
was
my
30th
God.
of December, a couple of days after Christmas. Instead of giving her a Christmas surprise, he shot her in the head. He then went up to his daughter's room and shot her. And then he went to his son's room and shot his son. The son didn't die right away, and so Spangler had to smother him with a pillow.
Oh my God.
He then goes back down to the basement and drops the gun. He did this because killing Nancy was easier than getting a divorce, and he killed his kids because his mistress, Sharon Cooper, didn't want to have kids. The police then ask about Donna. Originally, he doesn't talk very much about this. He's apparently worried about a civil case from her grown kids. Um, but they realize that this guy's like total narcissist. So they tell him that because he killed three people at the same time, he's not a serial killer. To be a serial killer, you need to kill, it depends on which definition, but two or three people, but on multiple occasions. And that was enough to get him to confess to fucking murdering Donna as well. Because he really wanted to be assessed by a criminal profiler from the FBI.
Oh my God.
He thought he was so special that they could learn so much from his fucking brain. So he admits to killing Donna in 1993. He says he wasn't happy with her, so he decided to kill her too. He led her to the ledge and then gave her a little shove. The end. That easy. And what about Sharon Cooper's suicide? He says he genuinely wasn't involved in this. I would argue not directly, maybe.
Mm.
Um, but that was clearly a relationship that took its toll on her mentally.
There's a Lola. I just see an ear. Hello, Lola. She can't hear me, obviously.
Um, but Robert Spangler says, you've given me credit for one too many. And I do think, I don't know, like I'm inclined to think that at this point he would just say if he did. I don't
Yeah,
know.
I think like he's such an egotistical asshole that if he
Yeah.
had killed her, he would have said,
And I couldn't find anything about whether they went into the death of his dad. You know, sometimes they let some of the murders slip by if they feel like there's no way we could prove this in court and we've already got enough on these cases
yeah.
that he will definitely die in prison. He's also got an inoperable fucking tumor in his brain or whatever. And then this is bizarre, and I wonder if it's because he was ill, although I've not heard about this in other cases. The police gave him a 30-day grace period to get his affairs in order and take one last trip to the Grand Canyon.
For fuck's sake. The fucking Grand Canyon.
Have you ever heard of that? Anything like that?
No, no, that
Jude,
I haven't come across that many cases where they were dying anyway. So
oh, but it just seems bizarre. Like, tough
mm,
shit. You have to sort out your affairs from prison, don't you?
yeah, yeah,
Other
yeah,
people have shit that they need to sort out when they go to prison.
yeah.
Anyone could die in prison. You don't have a very long life expectancy when you go to prison.
Hmm.
And I've never heard of them being like, oh, I really like this holiday destination. Do you mind if I just have another jolly before I go to jail? Anyway, so, and especially not for murder. I've heard of lesser crimes where you're like, okay, you've got to,
Yeah.
you know, you have to present yourself to prison to serve your time. And, but yeah, it's just bizarre. I mean, it must be because he was dying, but I still find it weird. So Judy, the woman that he was gonna marry or possibly did marry, you know how I was like, how did she explain away that all of these wives were dead? She said she knew he had murdered other people, but he had changed.
Oh my God.
Judy, 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 that's not how men work.
Anyone works, to be fair.
Yeah. So on the 3rd of October 2000, 67-year-old Robert Spangler is arrested and charged with one count of murder for Donna, part of his plea agreement, because more than one murder means the death penalty instead of life sentence. So he was only charged with the one count of murder for Donna. And the police must have thought, he's dying. If we get him for one murder, he'll die in jail, right? Initially, he pleaded not guilty and said his brain cancer had led him to confess to things that weren't true. But he does also, he also admitted, it's part of the plea bargain. So eventually he admits he's guilty. He has this plea agreement where they will only charge him for the one murder, but he has to also admit to killing his first wife and kids, even though they won't charge him for it. So I presume that's in order to give some closure and to close that case, right?
Hmm.
3 months later, he's sentenced to life in prison, and he dies 9 months later of brain and lung cancer at 68 on the 5th of August, 2001. I mean, that guy has committed so many murders and managed to live almost the entirety of his life
Yeah.
free. Do you want to hear one last creepy fact?
Yeah. I mean, no, but yeah.
It is suspected that when Robert Spangler was 11, he may have murdered a classmate he didn't like. This kid drowned in a sewage treatment plant, and
Oh my
Spangler
God.
was there and was even questioned by the police at the time.
It's
Uh,
just so fucked up. Like, I don't know about you, but I haven't ever experienced that level of death or people being,
it's,
from not natural causes dying around me.
yeah, it's just like how many freaky accidents can happen to one person?
Exactly.
You know, at some point you got to think. "Hmm." So again, there's no evidence that he was responsible for that death. It's just a thing that happens. Just say. So yeah, Robert Spangler. How much do we hate
Asshole.
him?
A lot.
A lot, huh? And it just makes me so mad that, I mean, he killed his wife and his kids,
Yeah.
his innocent young kids, and managed to live up until 9 months before his death. He managed to live
Yeah.
free.
Yeah. I like, when you want to really believe in karma, but things like that, stories like that make me not believe in karma.
No, I mean, he did get cancer, but I mean, still fucking compared to what he inflicted on other people, easy way out
Exactly.
for him.
Yeah.
So yeah, just absolutely insane story about someone getting away with so much shit.
Hmm.
So much shit. And
And it's actually just pure laziness as well. It's like, I don't want to go through a breakup with you, so I'm just going to murder you.
laziness and stinginess, because obviously,
Yeah.
you know, I don't know why he didn't try to kill Sharon Cooper and how he
No.
divorced her, whether it was because she seemed like a different personality type to the other two wives. Like she was definitely not meek and mild as Donna was described. Whether that saved her in that respect. I mean, she wasn't saved for long, but you know, it just, oh, it's just fucked up. Just so fucked up.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
Also made me not want to do any kind of online dating because Lonely
Mm.
Hearts Ads was basically the precursor to online dating. And if you've got Robert Spanglers on there, I don't want to know about it.
No, totally with you on that. I mean, I don't want to do it anyway, but no.
It'd be really nice if we got to the point where online dating sites themselves checked people's criminal records. There must be some way where that, you know what I mean, where
Oh,
you're not,
are you a psycho test?
yeah, psychopath test and violence against women or men um, in your criminal past.
Yeah.
And then we don't need to do it, but we don't need to look ourselves or whatever. It's just we know that anyone on there has not killed a woman before,
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
example.
Not asking too much, are we?
You know what I mean? Like we always think the bar is low, but these are basics and sometimes people still can't meet them. I
Mm.
have some exciting news.
Okay.
I didn't even have to beg very much to get an application to date either of us.
Yay.
So, this application to lighten the mood to date either of us is from Mark. I like the name Mark. It's a good name.
Hi, Mark.
Hi, Mark. Age, old enough to know better. Location, out in the boondocks. And judging from what little I know from him on Instagram, because his name is Sheldon, not that one on Instagram. I think he's in the States. What's in your fridge right now? So many condiments. Veg, carrots, peppers, celery, apples, oranges, eggs, many cheeses. Andouille, I don't eat meat, but that's a good sausage for you. Honey glazed
Okay.
ham, also delicious.
Nice.
Gatorade, American. And a tiny framboise lambic, which is an amazing raspberry flavored beer from Belgium. So yes,
Oh.
proof of that. Do you have any royal blood? Don't know, don't care. Not a bleeder. With the little blood emoji. Bonus points for emojis. Favorite Ninja Turtle and why? Michelangelo had a brother named Michael, which
Oh.
implies a sad story there.
Yeah.
Perfect first date, live music, good food. Yes, yes. Or potholing. Fuck no.
Nope.
Not after the story we just heard, Mark.
I wouldn't anyway.
Yeah. Um, Weird fact about you, lifelong atheist and skeptic. Join the club. It's a cool
Not
club.
weird.
Not weird. We love that about you. Or we're weird also. Whatever.
Yeah.
Some things you like, y'all, dogs, cats, forests, ska, Grateful Dead. Yes, Shakedown Street is such a good song.
Yeah.
Reading, and he's put dancing in little quotation marks. I'm sure you dance great, Mark.
Oh.
Some things you hate, racism, sexism, fascism, cantaloupe. Is it the texture?
I'm with him on that.
Okay. Yeah, you're not a melon fan. Um, what are you watching right now? Nothing. Streamed Vera last night and Shetland before that, though. Ah, you're an Anne Cleeves fan. Last time you cheated on a partner, had two girlfriends during high school. Last time you cheated on your taxes? No comments. Any tattoos? Tell us about them. My coal tattoo faded away years ago, so no. Did you give yourself a tattoo with like charcoal? I have follow-up questions.
Yes, me too.
Uh-huh. Do you know how to use household appliances? Only the important ones. Go-to meal that you cook. One of them I think will very much suit you, and one of them would very much suit me. First one is cheesy ham and eggs on toast.
Nice.
Yeah, and then for me, plate-sized blueberry pancakes. Although
Oh,
I would share them with you.
thank you.
Just can't eat the ham, you know. Anything else we should know? Anything you'd like to tell us? Wish I were on that side of the pond. Oh, Sheldon, not
Oh,
that one slash Mark. If you ever do come to the UK, let us know. We're going for a drink.
yeah.
Either one of us, whichever one is free, because you don't care. You don't care which one of us turns up. So yeah, that was nice, wasn't it?
Yeah,
I love our sexy listeners.
me
They
too. We
always
have to
make
rate him though.
Yeah, call me egotistical, but they make me feel good.
Yeah.
I
I think for me, it has to be a 9.5 just because of the potholing.
Yeah, I was gonna say a 9 because I was gonna take off half for the potholing. And that's almost entirely because of the episode we just did. They're too similar, potholing and hiking in the Grand Canyon, to not go unnoticed. And then I was going to take another half because he seems like quite a heavy meat eater. And
Okay.
I don't mind dating someone who's a meat eater, but it's just a lot of meat in his application. Then there's also blueberry pancakes. I'm gonna go 9.5 too, because the
Okay.
pancakes and Grateful Dead. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Awesome.
Love you, Mark. Thank you. And love you, Emma.
I love you.
And I love our sexy listeners. And we've got some fun plans for them in the future that we will
We do.
reveal at some point once we plan them. All right, love you.
Love
Bye.
you.
Bye,
Bye.
bye, bye.